Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today, we're sharing the story of David, a 62-year-old retired mechanic from Vancouver who thought he'd figured out the secret to a happy retirement in Thailand. After 40 years of Canadian winters, a failed marriage, and a pension that stretched further in Southeast Asia than it ever would back home, David landed in Chiang Mai with a plan. Live simply, date casually, keep his heart and his wallet protected. He'd read the forums, watched the cautionary videos, heard all the warnings about older Western men falling for younger Thai women. He was convinced he was too smart, too experienced, too world-weary to become another statistic. But Thailand has a way of making you believe your story will be different. This is about what happens when loneliness meets opportunity, when companionship has a price tag you don't see until it's too late, and when you have to choose between love and money because you can't afford both. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose between your heart and your bank account in a relationship, hit that like button and subscribe. You're definitely not alone. Alright, here's David's story. In his own words, I spent 40 years with my hands covered in grease, 40 years crawling under trucks in Vancouver, diagnosing transmission problems, replacing brake lines, doing the kind of work that destroys your knees and your back but pays the bills and keeps a family housed and fed. I was good at it. Started as an apprentice when I was 18, worked my way up to running my own bay at a heavy-duty shop in Burnaby. The work was honest, the pay was decent, and for a long time, that was enough. I married Linda when we were both 22. High school sweethearts, the kind of relationship that felt inevitable rather than passionate. We were comfortable together. We had 2 kids, Sarah and Michael, raised them in a little house in New Westminster with a backyard and a mortgage that took 30 years to pay off. Linda worked part-time at a dental office. I worked 6 days a week most of my life. We had barbecues in the summer, watched the kids play hockey, took 1 vacation a year to the Okanagan or sometimes down to Oregon. It was a good life, not exciting, but solid. The marriage didn't end with fireworks. There was no affair, no big fight, no moment of betrayal. We just drifted. Somewhere around year 25, I realised we barely talked anymore beyond logistics. Who's picking up Michael from practice? Did you pay the hydro bill? What do you want for dinner? We'd become roommates who shared a bed and a mortgage and not much else. The kids grew up, moved out, started their own lives. Sarah got married, had a baby, lived in Coquitlam. Michael moved to Calgary for work. And suddenly, Linda and I were alone in that house with nothing left to talk about. We separated when I was 58. She didn't fight it. I think she was relieved. We sold the house, split everything down the middle, stayed civil for the kids' sake. She started dating someone within 6 months, a guy she met at her book club. Good for her. I kept working, moved into a small condo in Burnaby, and tried to figure out who I was without the structure of marriage and fatherhood holding me up. That's when I started watching YouTube. Late at night, couldn't sleep, scrolling through videos about retirement, about where your pension goes furthest, about men my age who'd moved abroad and built new lives. Thailand kept coming up. The cost of living, the weather, the food, the ease of getting a retirement visa. I started doing the math. My pension was about 3,500 Canadian a month. In Vancouver, that barely covered rent and groceries. In Thailand, according to these videos, I could live like a king, got nice apartment, eating out every day, maybe even a motorbike, and still have money left over. I wasn't looking to chase bar girls or live out some fantasy. I want to be clear about that. I'd heard the stories, seen the documentaries, read the forum posts about older guys getting scammed by younger women. I thought I was too smart for that, too aware. I just wanted warmth, affordable living, and maybe a chance to feel young again, even if just for a little while. So 2 years ago, just after I turned 60, I did it. Sold the condo, packed 2 big suitcases with clothes and a few books, said goodbye to Sarah and Michael over a stiff dinner where they tried to be supportive, but clearly thought I was having some kind of crisis. Maybe I was. But I got on that flight to Bangkok, connected to Chiang Mai, and stepped off the plane into heat that felt like a warm bath after a lifetime of cold. The first few months were everything I'd hoped for. I rented a small house in the Niman area, one of those modern places with concrete floors and big windows, 12,000 baht a month, about 500 Canadian. It had air conditioning, a little kitchen, a bedroom with a firm mattress that was better for my back than anything I'd slept on in years. I bought a cheap motorbike, a little Honda Click, and learn to navigate the city. I joined an expat meetup group that gathered every Wednesday at a pub near the old city. Guys my age, mostly, some younger, some older, all of us running from something or towards something, hard to say which. I'd wake up without an alarm for the first time in decades. I'd make coffee, sit on my little balcony, watch the street vendors setting up below, listen to the temple bells ringing in the distance. I'd eat khao soi for lunch at a place down the street where the owner, an older Thai woman, started recognizing me and would smile when I walked in. I'd ride my motorbike up into the mountains, pull over at viewpoints, just sit there in the quiet. My body started to relax in a way I didn't know was possible. The tension I'd carried in my shoulders for 40 years, the constant low-grade stress of bills and responsibilities, it all started to melt away. I felt free. Properly free. For the first time since I was a teenager, I had no one depending on me, no job demanding my time, no obligations tying me down. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. It was intoxicating. I met Ploy about 3 months in. I'd started going to a little coffee shop in Nimmen most mornings, a place called Cloud9, hipster vibes, good espresso, fast Wi-Fi. She worked there part-time, usually the morning shift. Early 30s, I'd guess, slim, pretty in an understated way. Always wore her hair in a ponytail and these oversized glasses that made her look studious. Her English was decent, better than my Thai, which was limited to Sawadee crap and Kok Kun crap and not much else. She started remembering my order. Americano, no sugar, splash of milk. Small thing, but it made me feel seen. We'd chat while she made my coffee. She'd ask me how I was settling in, if I'd been to any good restaurants, what I thought of Chiang Mai. I'd ask her about her day, about her studies, because she mentioned she was taking online classes in business administration. She was curious about Canada, about the snow, about what Vancouver was like. She had this way of listening, really listening, that made you feel like what you were saying mattered. I wasn't blind. I knew what this looked like. Older Western guy, younger Thai woman, tale as old as time in this part of the world. But it didn't feel transactional. She never hinted at needing money, never suggested I buy her things. She was just friendly, warm. And I was lonely enough that friendly felt like a gift. One morning, after I'd been going there for about a month, she asked if I'd tried a particular restaurant in the old city, a place that served northern Thai food. I said I hadn't. She said I should, that it was one of her favourites. I said maybe she could show me sometime. She smiled, said sure, and we exchanged line contacts. She messaged me that evening, just a simple, hey, with a little waving emoji. We chatted for a bit, nothing heavy, just the kind of small talk you have when you're testing the waters. She suggested we go to that restaurant on her day off, which was Thursday. I said yes before I could overthink it. That first dinner was easy. We met at the restaurant, a small place with wooden tables and Christmas lights strung up even though it was March. She ordered for both of us, dishes I'd never heard of, and we ate family style, sharing everything. She told me about growing up in a small village in Chiang Rai province, about moving to Chiang Mai for school, about her family still back in the village, her parents, her younger brother. I told her about my kids, about my marriage, about the life I'd left behind. She didn't judge. She just listened and nodded and occasionally asked a question that showed she was actually paying attention. I paid for dinner without thinking about it. It felt natural, the older guy picking up the check. She thanked me but didn't make a big deal of it. We walked around the old city for a bit after, past the moat, through the night market, just talking. She showed me a temple I'd walked past a dozen times but never really noticed. We sat on the steps and she told me about the history of it, about the king who built it, about why people come here to pray for good fortune. When I dropped her off at her apartment building on my motorbike, she thanked me again, said she'd had a nice time, said we should do it again. I rode home feeling lighter than I had in years. It wasn't romance, not yet, but it was connection. And connection, I was learning, was the thing I'd been starving for without realising it. We started seeing each other once or twice a week, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for meals, once for a day trip up to Doi Suthep, where we climbed the steps to the temple, and she explained the significance of the golden chedi at the top. She was patient with my terrible Thai, teaching me phrases, laughing when I mispronounced tones and accidentally called something delicious when I meant expensive. I was patient with her English, helping her with grammar, explaining idioms she didn't understand. It felt balanced, equal even. I didn't think about the age gap much, or the cultural differences, or the economic disparity. I just thought about how nice it was to have someone to talk to. Someone who seemed genuinely interested in spending time with me. Someone who made me feel like I wasn't just another retired expat killing time until the clock ran out. About 2 months in, after a dinner at a Japanese place in Maya Mall, she asked if she could come back to my place for a bit. Not in a suggestive way, just casual, like she wasn't ready for the evening to end. I said sure. We sat on my balcony, drank tea, talked about nothing in particular. She mentioned she was tired from working double shifts that week, that the coffee shop was short-staffed. I asked if she needed to get home, said I could drive her any time. She said no, she was okay, that it was nice to just sit somewhere quiet. She fell asleep on my couch around 11. I covered her with a blanket, let her sleep. She woke up around 1 in the morning, apologized, said she should go. I said she could stay if she wanted, that I had a spare blanket. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. She slept in my bed that night. I slept on the couch. Nothing happened. But something shifted. After that, she started staying over more often. A toothbrush appeared in my bathroom, a change of clothes in my closet. We fell into a routine that felt domestic and comfortable. She'd come over after work, we'd cook dinner together, watch something on Netflix, fall asleep side by side. It wasn't passionate, but it was tender. It was companionship. And for a man who'd spent the last 4 years sleeping alone, that was more than enough. I started to let myself believe this was real. That ploy liked me for me, not for what I could provide. That the age gap didn't matter. That the cultural differences were just details. That we were two people who'd found each other at the right time and were building something genuine. I let myself fall into the fantasy. And in Chiang Mai, with the warm nights and the temple bells and the smell of jasmine on the air, it was so easy to believe in fantasies. The shift happened so gradually I didn't notice it at first. Poi started mentioning small problems, little financial hiccups that seemed innocent enough. Her motorbike broke down, needed a new clutch, 8,000 baht to fix it. I offered to pay without her even asking. It seemed like the decent thing to do. She was grateful, genuinely so, hugged me tight and said she'd pay me back when she could. I told her not to worry about it. What's 8,000 baht to me? Couple hundred Canadian nothing. A few weeks later, her phone screen cracked. She showed me the spiderweb of broken glass, said she'd have to wait until next month to replace it. I took her to a phone shop that afternoon, bought her a new one. 15,000 baht. She protested at first, said it was too much, but I insisted. I liked the feeling of being able to solve her problems. It made me feel useful, needed. Important in a way I hadn't felt since my kids were young and still depended on me. Then, her mother got sick. Some kind of infection, needed antibiotics and tests at the hospital in Chiang Rai. Ploy was stressed, distracted, crying on my couch one evening as she told me her family didn't have enough money for the medical bills. I didn't hesitate. I transferred 20,000 baht to her account that night. She cried harder, thanked me over and over, said I was the kindest man she'd ever met. I held her and felt like a hero. The requests came more frequently after that. Her brother needed school supplies and new uniforms. 5,000 baht. The family rice farm had a bad harvest and they were short on cash for seeds for next season. 30,000 baht. Her cousin was getting married and she needed money for a gift and a new dress. 7,000 baht. Each time, I told myself it was temporary, that she was going through a rough patch, that this is what partners do for each other. They help. But I started to notice a pattern. When I gave her money, she was affectionate, warm, present. She'd stay over, cook my favourite dishes, massage my shoulders when they were sore, tell me she loved me in that soft voice that made my chest ache. When I hesitated or suggested we wait, her mood would shift. She'd become distant, cold, claim she was tired or stressed or needed space. Then the text would slow down. She'd cancel plans. I'd panic, transfer the money, and suddenly she'd be back, smiling and sweet and everything I needed her to be. I wasn't stupid. I knew what was happening. But knowing and accepting are two different things. I told myself that relationships in Thailand were different, that family obligations were stronger here, that supporting your partner's family was just part of the cultural expectation. I told myself that Ploy was in a difficult position, caught between her love for me and her responsibility to her parents and brother. I told myself I was lucky to have someone who cared about me at all at my age, that this was just the price of admission. The guys at the Wednesday expat meetups didn't help. We'd sit around drinking Singer and Leo, and the conversations always drifted to women. Some of the guys were married to Thai women, seemed happy enough, talked about their wives with genuine affection. Others were openly cynical, called their girlfriends renter wives, joked about the monthly allowance they paid for companionship. A few were like me, somewhere in the middle, wanting to believe in love but aware that money was always part of the equation. One guy, an Australian named Greg, pulled me aside one night. He was 70, been in Thailand for 15 years, married to a woman 30 years younger. He said, "Mate, I'm going to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. Whatever you're paying, it's not enough, and it's also too much. It's not enough because there's always another emergency, another cousin who needs help, another roof that needs fixing. And it's too much because you're buying something that isn't real, and the price keeps going up the longer you pretend it is." I laughed it off, told employee was different, that our situation wasn't like that. He just nodded, gave me this sad smile, and said, "That's what they all say." By month 6, I'd given employee close to 200,000 baht. I started keeping track in a little notebook, not because I wanted to throw it in her face, but because I needed to see it written down to believe it was real. I was dipping into my savings, the nest egg I'd built up from selling my condo. My monthly pension covered my rent and living expenses. But the extra money I'd planned to use for travel, for emergencies, for feeling secure, it was disappearing faster than I'd anticipated. I tried to talk to her about it once. We were lying in bed, and I said, "Ploy, I need to slow down on the money for a bit. I'm worried about my savings." She went quiet. Then she said, "You think I'm using you?" I said, "No, that's not what I meant. I just need to be more careful." She sat up, pulled away from me, said if I didn't want to help her family, I should just say so. She made me feel like a villain for even bringing it up. Like I was being selfish, cheap, culturally insensitive. I apologized, transferred another 10,000 baht the next day to smooth things over. The breaking point came in December. My pension deposit hit my Thai bank account, and it was 30,000 baht short. I checked with my bank back in Canada, found out there'd been an exchange rate shift and some unexpected tax adjustments. Nothing catastrophic, but it meant my buffer was gone. I'd have to be more careful, stick to a strict budget, no more extras for a while. The same week, Ploy came to me with the biggest request yet. Her sister, who lived in Bangkok, had taken out a loan from a local lender and couldn't make the payments. She was being threatened, harassed, scared. Ploy needed 40,000 baht to pay it off. She was crying, genuinely distraught, said her sister was talking about doing something desperate. I wanted to help. Every instinct in me wanted to fix it. But I looked at my bank balance and felt something close to panic. I told her I couldn't. Not right now. Maybe in a month or two when things stabilized. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. She said, "So that's it. When I need you most, you say no." I tried to explain, tried to show her my bank statements, tried to make her understand that I wasn't refusing out of cruelty, but out of necessity. She wasn't interested. She grabbed her bag, walked out of my house, and didn't answer my calls for 3 days. When she finally responded, it was a short message. "I think we need space. This is too stressful. Maybe we want different things." I felt my chest cave in. I called her, texted her, begged her to talk to me. Nothing. On the 4th day, I drove to her apartment in a state of desperation I'm not proud of. I just needed to see her, to understand what was happening. Her motorbike was parked outside. Next to it was another bike, a bigger one, newer. I sat in my car across the street telling myself I was being paranoid, that it was probably a neighbour's bike, that I was overreacting. Then the door to her building opened and a man walked out. Younger than me, maybe 40, Western, tall, and fit in a way I'd stopped being 20 years ago. He kissed Ploy goodbye on the steps, casual, familiar, like they'd done it 100 times before. She smiled at him, waved as he got on his bike and drove off. Then she went back inside. I sat there for an hour, maybe longer. I couldn't move. I kept replaying every moment of the past 6 months, every conversation, every time she'd said she loved me, every time I'd convinced myself this was real. And I realised with a clarity that felt like drowning that I'd been an idiot. A lonely, desperate idiot who paid for affection and called it love because the truth was too humiliating to face. I didn't confront her. I just drove home. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my banking app and looked at the transactions. 6 months of transfers. Over 300,000 baht Thai, 45,000 Canadian, give or take. I tried to calculate what I bought with it. Companionship? A fantasy? The illusion that I was still desirable, still capable of being loved for something other than my pension. She messaged me later that night. A long apology, full of words that sounded sincere but felt hollow. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she cared about me, but that she couldn't be with someone who didn't understand her responsibilities, her pressures, her reality. She said I was a good man, but that we were too different, that it wasn't fair to either of us to keep pretending. She said she hoped I'd understand someday. I didn't respond. I blocked her number, deleted our line chat, unfriended her on Facebook. I erased every trace of her from my phone, like that would erase the past 6 months from my life. For 2 weeks, I barely left my house. I called in sick to the Expat meetups, avoided the coffee shop where we'd met, took a different route when I rode my motorbike so I wouldn't pass the places we'd been together. I felt humiliated, angry, heartbroken, stupid, all of it at once. I'd come to Thailand to escape loneliness, and I'd bought a version of companionship that evaporated the moment I couldn't pay for it anymore. Eventually, I forced myself back out. I went to the Wednesday meetup, sat with Greg and the other guys, and when they asked where I'd been, I told them the truth. They didn't laugh, they didn't say I told you so, they just nodded, ordered another round, and Greg said, "Welcome to the club, mate. We've all been there." I'm still in Chiang Mai. I'm not going back to Canada. What would I go back to? My kids have their own lives, my ex-wife has moved on, and Vancouver is just as lonely as it was before, only colder and more expensive. At least here, I have the sun. I have routines. I have a life that's mine, even if it's smaller and quieter than I'd hoped. I still see Ploy sometimes. Chiang Mai isn't that big. I'll spot her at a night market or riding past on her motorbike, sometimes alone, sometimes with another foreign guy who looks just like I did 6 months ago. I don't feel anger anymore. Mostly, I feel sad. Sad for her, sad for him, sad for all of us trapped in this system where survival and affection get so tangled up, you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. I've learned to be honest with myself now. When I date, which I do occasionally, casually, I'm clear about what I'm looking for and what I can offer. I don't pretend money isn't part of the equation. I don't lie to myself about what I'm buying. Some guys here pay bar fines and everyone knows the transaction. Some guys pay monthly allowances and call it a relationship. Both are honest in their own way. The dishonesty is pretending it's something else. That's where the pain lives. I think about Ploy more than I should. Not with bitterness, but with something like understanding. She wasn't evil. She was desperate. Her family needed money, and I had money, and she did what she had to do to survive. I needed companionship, and she provided it as long as I could pay for it. We were both using each other. I just didn't want to admit it until I couldn't afford not to.